Good day, I am Jamalai Sabaluma, best at Gem 2B, and I'm going to report the Chapter 11 Organization for Purchasing, Storekeeping, and Transportation. Objectives: to briefly understand the importance of purchasing, storekeeping, and transportation, to define what are purchasing, storekeeping, and transportation, and what are its role in the industry and in our lives, and lastly, to explain the function of purchasing, storekeeping, and transportation. The place of purchasing. The function of purchasing is as old as selling, for the two acts are complementary and one cannot take place without the other. Purchasing has inevitably developed as a part of large-scale business and a department of the specialized functional organization. It has attained ever increasing importance with the recognition of the fact that most production operation depends on a steady and reliable flow of materials and supplies, and the cost of these purchased components constitute a major factor of product cost. The principles and techniques of sound purchasing are usually adaptable and profitable in the operation of business, public utility and service companies, government units, schools and colleges, hospitals, and other institutions for which goods are bought and used. The knowledge of these principles and technique is essential not only for the persons specifically charged with the purchasing responsibility, but equally so for the administrative officers responsible for company policies and organization, and as well as for the marketing executive who must correlate their sales efforts with current buying practice. Importance of purchasing. In industrial management, there has been during the last decade a steady increasing pressure to reduce production cost. Competition between the industry is one of the strongest factors for such urge. Analysis of the data collected and published by the United States Census Bureau reveals interesting facts as the distribution of the use of American manufacturers' dollar. In industrial as a whole, 17 cents of manufacturer dollars are spent for wages, 26 cents for overhead, interest, taxes, and profit, while the remaining 57 cents are spent for materials. Obviously, therefore, purchasing is a phase of management which requires thorough study and efficient performance. These statistics could very well apply in the Philippines where wages, taxes, and overhead are comparatively lower where raw materials have often to be imported from abroad. The importance of purchasing could be further realized by considering it from the standpoint of buying for general types of items and considering different aspects of each type. These four types are merchandise, materials, equipment, and supplies. The method of purchase of each is more or less specialized. Objectives of purchasing. The purchasing responsibility is sometimes defined as buying materials of the right quality in the right quantity at the right time, the right place for the right source. The fundamental objectives of purchasing for a manufacturing industry may be summarized as follows. First, to maintain continuity of supply to support the manufacturing schedule. Second, to do so with the minimum investment in materials inventory, consistent with safety and economic advantage. Third, to avoid duplication, waste, and obsolescence with respect to materials. Fourth, to maintain standards of quality in the materials, base suitability for use. Fifth, to procure materials at the lowest cost consistent with the quality and service required. And lastly, to maintain the company's competitive position in the industry and to conserve its profit position insofar as material costs are concerned. Buying merchandise and materials. Merchandise is bought primarily for resale. Hence, the main features that the buyer must look for availability, style, and price. In the case of materials, on the other hand, compliance with definite standard specification is the prime essential. This is true in the purchase of basic materials for a main product, inasmuch as these are usually brought for manufacturing quality if a uniform quality product is desired out of the processing. If, however, substitutes are to be used, their composition and suitability should be ascertained by examination and testing. The ability to buy merchandise for resale is distinctly different from ability to buy materials for production. The techniques of buying and the objectives are different, and so are the qualification of the buyers. In buying merchandise, the buyer has in his mind the customer to whom he hopes to sell the goods. His success depends upon his ability to determine what will sell. There is some guesswork and an element of gambling which attracts many individuals, but the wrong guess surely endangered the job of the buyer. The buyer of materials, on the other hand, has to locate dependable sources of the specified materials at a reasonable price and has to be sure of delivery. If the material is not to be delivered on time, operations are affected, and if a high price is paid, the company has to raise the price of the finished product. Buying equipment. Equipment is purchased because of the time and labor it will save in turning out accurate and quantity work. But before any kind of equipment is purchased, the requirements of the work to be done must be determined and the equipment examined as to its suitable for the purpose. We can take an example, a sample operation whereby not so much factors are dealt with so that it is not advisable to purchase complicated machines. Another consideration is the durability of the equipment. Equipment is expected for the last for some time, so that it is purchased should be attended with serious care. Buying supplies. Supplies include those items which do enter into the manufacture of the products, but are used within the company and are not resold. They are, for example, the stationeries, greases, lubricating oils, soup, toilet paper, and similar items. The purchase of supply is generally, although to a lesser degree, subject to similar considerations as the purchase of materials upon specification, inasmuch as supplies are used up within the concern and have no direct effect on customers. Some concerns do not pay as much attention to their purchase as they should. Those supplies are likely to be purchased more on price basis rather than a quality aspects. Organization of the purchasing department. There are legitimate variations denoting some particular relationship in the purchasing organization. From the standpoint of the organization as a whole, the purchasing department is as rule of facilitating staff department. It makes purchases only a request of the other departments and has no authority to purchase on its initiative. In Figure 7, a purchasing department is headed by the purchasing agent and assisting him are the assistant purchasing agent, the procurement officer, the license and marine insurance officer, the canvassing, shipping and correspondence personnel. As could be noted in the chart, the procurement division and the license and marine insurance division are related under one department. The purchasing agent is amassed by a group of men known as buyers. These are the men who do the actual buying, they review the requisitions, interview salesmen, determine price, arrange for delivery, and sign the purchase orders. Each buyer is commonly assigned a particular commodity or group of commodities. The procurement division is charged with the functions of first, attending to the indent orders and local purchases. Second, preparation of innovations to bid. And third, assigning purchases or requisitions. On purchase order, to canvassers. It could be noted in the chart that there are 4 canvassing sections, each one assigned to purchase a certain group of materials. The License and Marine Insurance Division undertake the following function to with first, foreign exchange, import and export, second, preparation of letters of credit or LC and other banknotes, and third, marine insurance coverage. Under the division is the shipping section, which handles the preparation of trust receipts and ship-side bonds, the following up of shipping documents, and the taking charge of incoming and outgoing shipments. Functions of purchasing. The purchasing department is expected to perform the following or some of the following tasks. First, to secure necessary raw materials, equipment, facilities, supplies, and other items according to the specifications earlier arrive at a time fixed by a schedule or when they are needed. Second, to buy at prices according to the standards demanded within current market prices but taking advantages of discount that may be availed of. Third, to ask for quotation or bids on major items and to purchase items not requiring bids, to canvass for prices when the need arises. Fourth, to cultivate sources of supply. Fifth, to participate in the formulation of specifications for purchases and in conferences where purchasing is related. Six, to be on the lookout for new products or desirable substitutes. Seven, to interview salesmen even when what they sell is not needed at the time and help them see companies' executives. 8, to study markets and the best time to buy. 9, to count and inspect purchases. 10, to approve invoices for payment. 11, to keep informed on government regulation and inform other executives about them. 12, keep records on supplies, materials, and other purchases. 13, to study the company needs and requirements. 14, to attain the routing of purchases. And lastly, to look after the disposal of surplus or obsolete materials, equipment, supplies, and merchandise. Procedure in purchasing. Purchasing is not as simple a task as It may appear to the average person whose only experience is in purchasing personal needs. A definite, well-planned, and wisely followed procedure is necessary. The different steps in purchasing follow the purchasing department illustrated are as follows. First, the purchase requisition is prepared and signed by the department head needing the material. Specifications, quantity, known sources of supply, and the time when needed are stipulated in the requisition. Second, the requisition is coursed through the accounting department for indication of funds available, after which it is assigned by the treasurer or the head of the company or the manager or whoever is authorized to act in their stead. Third, the purchase requisition is then forwarded to the purchasing department. The procurement officer assigns it to the canvassing as to source, availability, and price. When a big amount is involved, bidding is resorted to. After a final decision is arrived at whether through direct buying or bidding, the purchase order is prepared by the purchasing department. Fourth, the purchase order of PO is signed by the purchasing agent, the requisitioner, the treasurer, and the general manager. Copies are prepared for the supplier, the department or unit which needs the supplies, receiving unit, the accounting unit, and the inspection unit. Fifth, the purchase order is then forwarded to the supplier or to the winning bidder in case of bidding. In case the order is not met on time, or if there is a material shortage situation, follow-up may be made either personally, by telephone, or other means. 6. Upon delivery of the purchased goods, they are checked by the requisitioner and the representative of the inspector or auditor to find out whether requirements as to specification are complied with. If so, the delivery invoice is signed by the requisitioners and the auditor's representative, and the goods are finally accepted. Arrangements for payment are made and records of the transaction for future guide are kept. Relation of purchasing with other organizational units. Analysis of scope and type of work of a well-rounded purchasing program indicates that the buying operation virtually touches practically every other department of the whole organization in many vital fields beyond the actual procurement of materials and supply for their needs. Thus, it becomes necessary that close cooperation must be maintained not only with production, but likewise with finance, accounting, engineering, maintenance, sales, office management, and the general management as well. Purchasing and productions. Historically, purchasing is allied to the production function, which embraces a wide variety of activities that are subject to specialized and independent administration in more highly functionalized organization of large industry. The relation is in the form of well-defined cooperation, which involves first of all a complete interchange of information. For example, the production department should advise promptly or in advance the purchasing department concerning the program to carry on, completed work schedules, and special contract jobs to undertaken so that necessary materials and supplies may be arranged in a systematic manner with practicable way for a well-planned program of procurement and a minimum of rush requirements. On the other hand, it is responsibility of the purchasing department to see that actual delivery requirements are met and that the production department is advised as to when orders are issued and delivery promised by the supplier. Purchasing and engineering. In many ways, cooperation between the purchasing and engineering departments is comparable to that between the purchasing and production departments, except that engineering is chiefly concerned with matters of production design and specification primarily to actual production requirements. Purchasing and accounting. Every purchase made represent an expenditure against the company budget and sets in motion a series of accounting operations, such as charging the expenses to the proper account, the verification approval of invoices, final auditing, and payment. The relationship between the purchasing and accounting departments is considered a vital one which frequently starts before the purchase is actually made. For instance, the purchase requisition before it is finally approved must have to pass through the accounting department for indication of whatever funds are available therefore. All transactions should be accounted for within a reasonable limit of time so that payment could be expended within the discount period. Accounting shows actual records of current and total receipts, consumptions, and what goes into operation for determining the resulting manufacturing unit cost of the finished product. Purchasing and sales. The sales department should keep the purchasing department informed of the sales quotas and expectation as guide to preferable quantity requirements of materials. When special contracts or new products are contemplated, the purchasing department should likewise be advised in order that the necessary preliminaries of the purchasing program may be undertaken intelligently in advance of the actual needs. Stores and control. Functions. The function of storekeeping is concerned with the providing a place or places for the safe and convenient storing of materials and supplies that are needed for immediate use, for disbursing such materials as required, and for seeing to it that the supply do not run out before additional quantities are ordered and received. One man is usually assigned to take charge as is responsible for all aspects of storekeeping. Purposes. The purposes of storekeeping and control may be stated in two categories. With first, from the viewpoint of operation, to assure an adequate supply of materials when needed in balance with the requirements and turning over at a reasonable rate, to assure that they are readily accessible and safe from fire, floods, thief, and other hazards. Second, from the financial viewpoint, which is to minimize inventory investment at any given time, thus reducing cost of handling and storing, insurance and interest, and to avoid losses from deteriorations, obsolescence, and falling prices. Location of storerooms. The location of storerooms is an important consideration. It is logical and obvious that a storeroom should be conveniently near to the departments being served, so that no unnecessary time may be lost in getting the items needed. Likewise, the storeroom should be located in such a way that deliveries from an outside source or resources could be facilitated in order to avoid much handling and transportation. Unnecessary handling of materials adds the cost but not the value. Stock keeping. Any system of stock keeping or stores controls is predicated on the orderly storage of materials under accounting while in storage. Attending must be paid to, first, facilities, second, supervision, and third, records. Storage facilities. Storage facilities must be adapted to the types of materials handled and which include racks, bins, shelving, trays, platforms, and floor space, all numbered or otherwise identified as to specific location. The arrangement must follow as closely as possible to the order of the community classification. Such arrangement will facilitate both the physical handling of stock when putting them into the stores or finding them as needed, and accounting for the stock by counting or reconciling them with the records. The layout of the store likewise facilitates efficient handling of materials with adequate lighting and a cell space for the use of hand and lift trucks and similar mechanical devices. Supervision. Control of stores is further facilitated by unit storage or pilling so as to give a quick visual count of material on hand. With uniform arrangement of say 20 units in a layer and with the use of markers, an accurate count of even several thousands is possible at a glance. A usual method of keeping control of stock is by the use of stock cards, wherein entries of which addition to stock and issues from stock, and the balance on hand provides a running inventory of each item. All responsibilities for stores should be centered in a store, keeping and his staff, who provides for the orderly arrangement of the proper physical care of all materials, record the receipt, keep track of quantities, and issue them as required on a proper authorization. Records. The basic record of the stores department is the stock record or the perpetual inventory. The records of cone must be periodically verified, say monthly, semi-annually, or annually. Stock records are useful because, first, they reduce physical inventories to reasonable and economic but sufficient levels. Second, they are needed in the preparation of the periodic financial statements, such as profit and loss or income statement. Third, they reveal slow-moving stocks and the order of preferred priorities in getting stocks. Fourth, they forms a basis for adjustments in the event of fire, thief, or calamity. Fifth, they minimize the commission of acts of dishonesty and carelessness. Sixth, they enable the enterprise to keep delivery dates as promised to customers. Transportation. Importance of transportation. The importance of transportation as a facilitating function of business cannot be emphasized enough. Its effect on the entire economy is pervasive. Those a State of the Nation address of the Philippines of the President of the Philippines stresses that the transport sector cannot be neglected for long without the economy suffering adverse consequences. The system of distribution may cease to function properly. Prices in local markets may fluctuate excessively, inventory requirements may become abnormal, production incentives may sag, and sources of remain idle for lack of access. All functions of business, but most especially production and sales, are dependent on a properly managed transportation system. Modes of transportation. A business firm may depend on outside sources of transportation. In addition, it may operate its own internal transportation facilities. In both instances, the department charged with the function must be staffed by specialized and most make maximum use of planning, scheduling, specialization, and cost controls. Outside transportation may be by truck and bus, by rail, by water, and by air. And buses are extensively used by business firms in the Philippines. Passenger traffic is also quite heavy. Around this mode of transportation has grown a vast complex involving not only those who work directly in this transportation business, but also those engaged in assembling or repairing motor vehicles, the sales and servicing of vehicles, the refining and marketing of motor fuels and lubricants, and the maintenance or construction of highways, roads, and bridges. The railroad is an expensive method of transporting raw materials and heavy equipment over relatively long distances. There are two railway systems in the Philippines, one in Panay Island and the other extending from La Union in northern Luzon to Albay in the Bicol Peninsula. There are also special railways for sugar plantations and other enterprises. Water transportation is even more inexpensive because the Philippines is an archipelago of many islands. Trade and industry depend heavily on inter-island shipping. Both rail and water transportation require terminal handling to from the railway station or port to the firm's premises. Air transportation is speedy and efficient but expensive. Business is fast realizing the advantages of air cargo for certain types of merchandise. For instance, fishing magnates regularly fly plane loads or fresh fish from Mindanao to Manila. Newspapers must be delivered by air transport. Internal transportation fleets are maintained by manufacturing or marketing organizations. Usually, supervision and control of the transportation unit are handled by either production or sales, depending upon which function is being serviced. And I will end my report by saying, the only way to do great work is to love what you do.